The smell of burnt coffee and old paper clung to my clothes as I finally shut down my computer at 9:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve. My fingers ached from typing briefs all day, and my eyes burned from staring at legal documents until the words blurred together. Outside my office window, fat snowflakes drifted past the glass, settling on the Manhattan streets below in a way that would have been magical if I wasn't so bone-tired and utterly, devastatingly alone. "You're really not coming to my parents' place?" Sarah asked from the doorway, already bundled in her expensive wool coat, her engagement ring catching the fluorescent lights. "They always make too much food. You'd be welcome." I forced a smile, the same smile I'd perfected over the years. The one that said I'm fine, really. Don't worry about me. "That's sweet, but I've got plans." The lie tasted bitter. My plans consisted of leftover Chinese takeout, a bottle of wine, and whatever Christmas movie marathon was playing on TV. Same as last year. And the year before. And every year since my parents died in that car accident when I was 19. "Well, Merry Christmas, Lucy," Sarah said, guilt flickering across her face because she knew I was lying. But not enough guilt to push harder. No one ever pushed harder. "Merry Christmas," I replied, already pulling on my own considerably less expensive coat. The law firm was nearly empty, just a few associates like me who'd drawn the short straw on the Patterson case. I grabbed my bag, checked that I had my phone, and headed for the elevator. The building was one of those old Manhattan structures with character, which meant the heat was temperamental, and the elevator creaked ominously as it descended. My phone buzzed. The Uber I'd requested was here. Black sedan, license plate ending in 4XJ. I pushed through the lobby doors into the frigid December night, my breath forming clouds in front of my face. The street was quieter than usual. Most people already home with their families, their trees, their traditions. There. A black sedan idling at the curb. I squinted at the license plate through the falling snow. The numbers were hard to make out, but it ended in what looked like a J. Close enough. The driver hadn't gotten out to open the door, which was fine by me. I was perfectly capable of opening my own door. I slid into the back seat, grateful for the warmth, and immediately started talking. It's what I do when I'm nervous or sad or both. My therapist, Dr. Morrison, calls it a coping mechanism. I call it being unable to shut up. "God, thank you for being on time," I said, dumping my bag beside me and pulling the door shut. "I know it's Christmas Eve and you probably want to be home with your family, but I really appreciate it. Most drivers cancel on me this late. I live in Brooklyn, by the way. Williamsburg. The address should be in the app." The driver said nothing, which wasn't unusual. Some Uber drivers were chatty, some weren't. This one apparently fell into the latter category. The car pulled smoothly away from the curb, and I leaned my head back against the leather seat. Really nice leather, actually. Soft and expensive smelling. Maybe Uber had upgraded their vehicle standards. "You know what the worst part about Christmas is?" I continued, my mouth running ahead of my brain like it always did. "It's not even being alone. I mean, that's bad, don't get me wrong. But it's that everyone assumes you have somewhere to be. Like it's impossible that someone might not have family or traditions or any of that." Sarah, my coworker, she invited me to her parents' place. But it was one of those pity invites, you know? Where they feel bad for you, but not bad enough to actually want you there. I watched the snow falling outside, the city lights blurring into golden streaks. My parents died 6 years ago. Car accident on the way to visit me at college. And I don't have siblings or aunts or uncles or anyone. It's just me. Every single holiday. Just me. And people say it gets easier. But I don't think it does. I think you just get better at pretending it doesn't hurt. The driver still hadn't said anything. And I finally looked up at the rearview mirror, trying to catch his eye to see if I was annoying him with my rambling. But what I saw made my breath catch in my throat. The eyes looking back at me weren't the tired, patient eyes of an Uber driver trying to make it through a holiday shift. They were dark, intense, and decidedly not looking at the road. They were looking directly at me through the mirror, and there was something in that gaze that made every nerve in my body suddenly alert. "You're not my Uber driver," I said, the words coming out smaller than I intended. "No," a deep voice replied, rich with an accent I couldn't quite place, but that sent shivers down my spine for reasons that had nothing to do with the cold. "I'm not." My hand flew to the door handle, but the car was moving too fast now, weaving through traffic with practiced ease. Panic clawed at my throat, every true crime podcast I'd ever listened to flooding my mind at once. "Let me out. Please, I'm sorry. I got in the wrong car. Just let me out and I'll get another ride." "Lucy Lawson," he said, and hearing my name in his mouth made my blood run cold. How did he know my name? Criminal defense attorney at Morrison & Associates, graduated top of your class from Columbia Law, lives alone in a fourth-floor walk-up in Williamsburg, no family, no boyfriend, works 80-hour weeks and eats too much takeout. My heart was hammering so hard I could hear it in my ears. "How do you know all that? Who are you?" The car slowed slightly, and for the first time, he glanced back at me over his shoulder. The face that went with those intense eyes was almost unfairly handsome. Sharp jawline dusted with stubble, strong nose, full lips that quirked up at one corner and something that wasn't quite a smile. He looked like he was in his mid-30s, with dark hair swept back from his face and olive skin that suggested Mediterranean heritage. "My name is Luca Santoro," he said, and something about the way he said it suggested I should recognize it. When I didn't react with anything but confusion, his almost smile widened slightly. "You really don't know who I am. Should I?" My voice came out more steady than I felt, some lawyer instinct kicking in that told me to stay calm, assess the situation, find the angle. Most people in this city do. He turned back to the road, but I could still feel the weight of his attention on me. "But I suppose that's refreshing. You got in my car, started telling me your life story, and you have absolutely no idea that you're sitting in the back seat of one of the most dangerous men in New York." The confession should have terrified me more than it did. Instead, weirdly, something in me relaxed slightly. Dangerous men who wanted to hurt you didn't usually announce it so matter-of-factly. They didn't drive luxury sedans with heated leather seats and some kind of expensive cologne that was making it hard to think straight. "If you're so dangerous," I heard myself say, "why are you telling me that? Isn't that kind of counterproductive to whatever you're planning to do to me?" His laugh was low and genuine, filling the car. "I'm not planning to do anything to you, Lucy, though I'm reconsidering my evening plans." "What does that mean?" He was quiet for a moment, navigating a turn with the kind of confidence that suggested he knew exactly where he was going. "It means I was on my way home when you got in my car. It means I should have corrected you immediately, told you this wasn't your Uber. But then you started talking, really talking, and I..." He trailed off, seeming to search for words. I don't often meet people who are genuine, who say exactly what they're thinking without calculating the angle. "I have a condition," I blurted out. "Verbal diarrhea. I can't stop talking when I'm nervous. And right now, I'm very, very nervous because I'm in a car with a man who just told me he's dangerous and knows everything about me, and I don't know anything about you except your name, and that you're probably in the Mafia, or something equally terrifying." "Or something," he agreed, amusement coloring his voice. We'd left Manhattan now, crossing over into what looked like Brooklyn, but not toward Williamsburg. "Where are you taking me?" "Home," he said simply. "My home. It's Christmas Eve, Lucy Lawson. You told me you have nowhere to be, no one waiting for you. Well, I have somewhere to be, and an entire family who will never forgive me if I show up to Christmas Eve dinner without the woman who accidentally got in my car and proceeded to tell me her life story. I stared at the back of his head, trying to process what he was saying. You want me to have Christmas dinner with your family? A family of dangerous people? The most dangerous thing about my family, Luca said, is that my mother will force feed you until you can't move, and my nephew Logan will talk your ear off about his comic book collection. Though actually, given your apparent need to fill silence with words, you two might get along perfectly. Despite everything, despite the absolute insanity of this situation, I felt something warm unfurl in my chest. You want me to come to your family Christmas dinner. Me, a complete stranger who got in your car by mistake. You're not a complete stranger anymore, he pointed out. I know you're lonely. I know you lost your parents too young. I know you work yourself to exhaustion to avoid going home to an empty apartment. And I know that no one should be alone on Christmas Eve, especially not someone who talks to strangers in cars because she's so desperate for human connection that she'll take what she can get, even if it's from an Uber driver who isn't actually an Uber driver. The observation was so accurate, so painfully precise, that I felt tears prick my eyes. That's not fair. No, he agreed, his voice gentler than before. It's not. But neither is spending Christmas Eve alone when you don't have to. My mother, Loretta Santoro, she has a saying, the table is always bigger than the family. There's room for you, Lucy, if you want there to be. I should have said no, should have insisted he take me home, should have called the police or jumped out at the next red light or done literally anything other than what I did, which was whisper, okay? Okay? He glanced at me in the mirror again, and this time there was something like satisfaction in his dark eyes. Okay, I said more firmly, but if your family turns out to be serial killers or something, I'm going to haunt you in the afterlife and never shut up. His laugh filled the car again. Noted. Though I should warn you, Lucy Lawson, once you sit at the Santoro table, once you break bread with my family, you become part of it. We don't let people go easily. The words should have sounded like a threat. Instead, they sounded like a promise. And as we drove through the snowy Brooklyn streets toward whatever waited for me at the end of this bizarre Christmas Eve, I realized I wanted to find out what being part of something meant. Even if that something came with danger and intensity, and a man whose eyes seemed to see straight through every defense I'd ever built. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably the actual Uber driver wondering where I was. I ignored it. For once in my carefully controlled life, I was choosing the wrong car. And somehow, it felt exactly right. The Santoro house wasn't what I expected. I'd been imagining something out of The Godfather. Maybe a dark, imposing mansion with guards at the gate, and an air of barely concealed menace. Instead, Luca pulled up to a beautiful brownstone in Carroll Gardens, its windows glowing with warm light, a wreath hanging on the door, and what sounded like a full orchestra of voices and laughter spilling out into the quiet street. That's my family, Luca said, killing the engine and turning to face me properly for the first time. Up close, he was even more devastating. Those dark eyes held flecks of amber in the streetlight, and there was a scar, barely visible along his left cheekbone. Last chance to run. You say that like I'd get very far, I replied, trying to keep my voice light despite my hammering heart. His smile was slow and dangerous. Smart woman. Before I could respond, the front door burst open and a tiny tornado of a woman came barreling down the steps, arms already spread wide. She couldn't have been more than 5 feet tall, with silver-streaked dark hair pulled back in a bun and an apron that declared, "Kiss the cook, or she'll tell your mother." Luca, finally, we were about to send a search party. She stopped short when she saw me emerging from the passenger side, her dark eyes, so like her son's, going wide. Then her face split into the most genuine smile I'd seen in years. "And who is this beautiful girl?" "Mama, this is Lucy Lawson," Luca said, moving around the car to stand beside me in a gesture that felt oddly protective. "She accidentally got in my car thinking I was her Uber driver. I invited her for dinner." Loretta Santoro looked between us, something knowing and delighted sparking in her expression. Accidentally, of course. How perfectly convenient. Before I could process what that meant, she'd pulled me into a hug that smelled like garlic and vanilla and something else that made my throat tight. It smelled like home, or at least what I imagined home should smell like. "Lucy, darling, welcome. Come in before you freeze. Luca, why didn't you give her your coat? Raised by wolves, I swear." "I'm fine," I managed to say, but Luca was already shrugging out of his expensive wool coat and draping it over my shoulders. It was warm from his body heat and smelled like that cologne I'd noticed in the car. Cedar and something darker, richer, that made my head spin slightly. "Thank you," I whispered. His hand lingered on my shoulder for just a moment. "You're welcome." Inside, the house was organized chaos. The hallway was lined with photos spanning generations, the air thick with the scent of cooking food that made my stomach growl embarrassingly loud. From deeper in the house, I could hear multiple conversations happening simultaneously, laughter, and what sounded like an argument about proper tomato sauce technique. "Luca's home," Loretta bellowed in a voice that absolutely did not match her tiny frame, and suddenly I was surrounded. First was an older man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes, who introduced himself as Antonio, Luca's father. Then his sister Sophia with her husband Marco, his brother Nico with his wife Gabriella, and approximately 15 cousins whose names flew by too fast for me to catch, though I was introduced to each one with genuine warmth. But it was Logan who stopped me in my tracks. He was maybe 7, with dark curly hair and missing his 2 front teeth, and he marched right up to me with the confidence of someone 3 times his age. "Are you Luca's girlfriend?" he demanded. "Logan!" Sophia, apparently his mother, looked mortified. "What?" "Nona said we should ask direct questions." He turned back to me, expectant. I glanced at Luca, who was watching this exchange with barely concealed amusement. No. I'm just someone who got in the wrong car." Logan's eyes went wide. "Did you get kidnapped? That's so cool. Luca, did you kidnap her?" "I did not kidnap anyone," Luca said firmly, but his lips twitched. "Lucy is our guest for Christmas Eve dinner. Be nice to her, or Nona will make you wash all the dishes." The threat worked. Logan immediately offered me his hand. "I'm Logan Anthony Ricci, and I'm 7 3/4. I like Spider-Man and mac and cheese, and I'm going to be a lawyer when I grow up, just like Uncle Luca." Well, not exactly like Uncle Luca because Mama says that would give her a heart attack, but the good kind of lawyer who helps people. His earnest little face made something in my chest crack open. "I'm a lawyer," I said, shaking his small hand seriously. "I help people too." His eyes lit up. "Really? Do you know about constitutional law? Because I have questions about the 4th Amendment and whether it applies to parents searching your room without permission." "Logan," Sophia warned. "It's a legitimate legal question, Mama." I couldn't help but laugh. The first genuine laugh I'd had in weeks. "Tell you what, we can discuss it after dinner. I have some thoughts on the reasonable expectation of privacy in a minor's bedroom." Logan looked at me like I'd just offered him the moon. "She's my new favorite person," he announced to the room at large. "Get in line, kid," Nico called from where he was setting the table. I saw her first," Luca corrected, his voice carrying an edge that made everyone go quiet for a beat. Then he smiled, and the tension broke. "But we can share. It's Christmas after all." Loretta ushered me into the kitchen, which was approximately the size of my entire apartment and smelled like heaven. There were multiple pots bubbling on the stove, something in the oven that made my mouth water, and what looked like enough food to feed a small army. "You cook?" she asked, handing me a glass of red wine without asking if I wanted it. "Not really," I admitted. "I mostly survive on takeout and whatever I can microwave." She looked genuinely pained. "Luca, this poor girl is starving." "No wonder she's so skinny. Sit, sit." She practically pushed me into a chair at the large kitchen table. "You'll eat, you'll talk. You'll tell me how you really met my son, because I know it wasn't just an Uber mix-up." I glanced at Luca, who had leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "It actually was," I said. "I got in his car by mistake and started rambling about how I hate Christmas because I don't have any family and—" I stopped, realizing what I'd just said. "I'm sorry. That was insensitive. You have a lovely family." No, darling." Loretta's hand covered mine, warm and soft and calloused from years of cooking. "You spoke the truth, and truth is always welcome at this table. No family?" Her eyes shone with sympathy. "What happened?" So I told them. About my parents' accident, about being an only child with no extended family, about how I'd thrown myself into law school and then worked to avoid the grief, and how somewhere along the way I'd forgotten how to let people in. The words poured out of me like they had in Luca's car, but this time it didn't feel like verbal diarrhea. It felt like relief. Loretta listened to every word, her hand never leaving mine. When I finished, she stood, walked around the table, and pulled me into another fierce hug. "Well, now you have family. The Santoros adopt strays, isn't that right, Luca?" "That's right, Mama," he said softly, his eyes never leaving my face. "But we should probably tell her what she's being adopted into," Antonio said from the doorway, his tone gentle but serious. "It's only fair." The temperature in the room shifted slightly. Loretta released me and stepped back, exchanging a look with her husband that communicated volumes without words. "Papa's right," Luca said, pushing off the counter and moving to stand beside where I sat. "Lucy, you asked me in the car if I was in the Mafia. The answer is complicated." My heart picked up speed again, but I forced myself to stay still, to listen. This was what I did, after all. Listen to people confess complicated things and help them navigate the legal consequences. "My grandfather came to this country with nothing," he continued. "He built a business, an empire really, but he did it by making deals with people who operated outside the law. Some of those debts, those obligations, they passed down to my father. And then to me. Luca runs several legitimate businesses now," Antonio added. "Restaurants, import-export, real estate. But the old connections, they don't just disappear. And some people, they don't want to let go of the old ways." "The Morettis," I said, the name coming to me from somewhere. I'd heard it before, whispered in courthouse hallways, mentioned in sealed case files. "They're a crime family." "They are," Luca confirmed. "And they've been trying to undermine our legitimate businesses for years, trying to pull us back into the old wars, the old ways. My family wants out, Lucy. We want to be clean. But the Morettis, they see that as weakness. They're planning something, and we need help building a case against them that will stick. Legal help." Understanding dawned. "You didn't just randomly invite me to Christmas dinner. You want to hire me." "No," he said firmly, crouching down so we were at eye level. "I invited you because you were alone on Christmas Eve, and so was I, in all the ways that matter. This," he gestured around the crowded, noisy kitchen, "this is my family, my heart. But I'm lonely too, Lucy. Surrounded by people who love me but can't understand the weight I carry. And then you got in my car and started talking. Really talking. Not at me or around me, but to me. And I thought. He paused, seeming to search for words. I thought maybe I'd found someone who could understand. But you do need a lawyer, I pressed, needing to understand the full picture. We do, he admitted. But that's separate. Tomorrow, if you want, we can talk about the Morettis and legal strategy and all of that. Tonight, you're just Lucy, and I'm just Luca, and we're having Christmas Eve dinner with my loud, overbearing, wonderful family, okay? I should have run, should have called a real Uber and gotten out of this situation before it got more complicated. But Logan chose that moment to poke his head into the kitchen and announce that the antipasti was ready, and Loretta was pulling me up from my chair, and Luca's hand was somehow at the small of my back, guiding me toward the dining room, and I realized something terrifying. I didn't want to run. For the first time in 6 years, I wanted to stay. Dinner was chaos in the best possible way. The table seemed to expand magically to accommodate everyone. Plates and bowls appearing in a steady stream from the kitchen until every available surface groaned under the weight of food. Antipasti with prosciutto and fresh mozzarella. Pasta with homemade sauce that Loretta informed me had been simmering since dawn. Braised short ribs that fell apart at the touch of a fork. Roasted vegetables glistening with olive oil and herbs I couldn't name. And the noise. God, the noise. Everyone talked at once, interrupting each other, finishing each other's sentences, arguing passionately about everything from the proper amount of garlic in the sauce to whether the Yankees would do better next season. It was overwhelming and wonderful, and exactly the opposite of every silent, solitary meal I'd eaten in my apartment. Luca had positioned me between himself and Logan, which I suspected was strategic. Logan peppered me with legal questions between bites of pasta, while Luca quietly made sure my wine glass stayed full, and that I got portions of everything before the serving dishes emptied. So the exclusionary rule, Logan said with the gravity of someone discussing matters of national importance. Does that mean if the police search your room without a warrant, they can't use what they find against you in court? Generally, yes, I said, trying not to smile at how seriously he was taking this. Though there are exceptions. If there's probable cause or exigent circumstances. What's exigent circumstances? It means an emergency situation where waiting for a warrant might result in evidence being destroyed or someone getting hurt. He nodded thoughtfully, then turned to his mother. See, Mama? If you search my room, anything you find is inadmissible. Logan Anthony, I am your mother, not law enforcement, Sophia replied without missing a beat. The Fourth Amendment doesn't apply to parental supervision, and you're still grounded for the lizard incident. What lizard incident? I whispered to Luca. His lips quirked. He smuggled a gecko into school and tried to claim it was an emotional support animal, had a whole legal brief prepared and everything. I couldn't help but laugh. I like him. He likes you too, Luca said, his voice dropping lower so only I could hear. My whole family does. They've been watching you all night like you're some kind of Christmas miracle. I'm really not, I said, suddenly self-conscious. I'm just a lawyer who got in the wrong car. His hand found mine under the table, warm and solid and sending little electric shocks up my arm. There's no such thing as the wrong car, Lucy. Not tonight. Before I could process what that meant or why my heart was racing at his touch, Loretta stood and tapped her wine glass with a fork. The conversation died down, everyone turning to face her. Every Christmas Eve, she began, her voice carrying easily across the suddenly quiet room. We go around the table and share what we're grateful for. It's tradition. Antonio, you start. I'm grateful for my beautiful wife who's put up with me for 43 years, Antonio said, raising his glass to Loretta, who blew him a kiss. And for all my children and grandchildren who fill this house with life, and for the fact that we're all here, healthy and together, when not everyone is so blessed. It went around the table, each person sharing. Sophia was grateful for Marco's new job. Nico was grateful that Gabriella's cancer was in remission. which explained the fierce way he held her hand. Logan was grateful for his new comic books, and that Spider-Man didn't get snapped in the last Avengers movie. Then it was my turn, and every eye was on me. I felt my throat tighten, felt the familiar panic of being the center of attention without a prepared statement. "I'm grateful," I started, my voice embarrassingly shaky, "that I got in the wrong car tonight, that Luca didn't immediately correct me and kick me out, that Loretta invited me in without question, that all of you welcomed a complete stranger to your table on Christmas Eve when I was fully prepared to spend it alone, eating cold lo mein and feeling sorry for myself." Tears were threatening now, and I blinked hard against them. I'm grateful that maybe, just for tonight, I don't have to be alone. The silence that followed felt different from before. Heavier. Then Loretta was moving, coming around the table to pull me into yet another hug, and I felt the dam break. 6 years of carefully controlled grief spilled out in that warm kitchen, and I cried into this tiny Italian woman's shoulder while she murmured comfort in a mix of English and Italian and stroked my hair like I was one of her own children. When I finally pulled back, mortified, I found every person at the table looking at me with something like understanding. No pity, just recognition that loss was universal, and grief was something you carried together, not alone. "Sorry," I mumbled, accepting the napkin Luca handed me. "God, I'm such a mess." "You're perfect," Logan announced. "Uncle Luca, you should keep her." "Logan!" Sophia's voice carried warning, but Luca was looking at me with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Maybe I will," he said softly. The rest of dinner passed in a blur of dessert, tiramisu and cannoli and biscotti that Loretta packed into containers for me to take home despite my protests. Coffee appeared, thick and strong and sweet. More wine, more stories. Logan eventually fell asleep with his head on the table, and Marco carried him to the living room couch. It was close to midnight when Luca finally stood, offering me his hand. "Come with me. There's something I want to show you." I followed him up the stairs to what was clearly his childhood bedroom, preserved exactly as he must have left it. There were debate team trophies on the shelf, photos of a younger Luca with his siblings, books on law and philosophy and Italian history lining the walls. "This is where I decided to become a lawyer," he said, moving to the window that overlooked the snow-covered garden below. "I was 16, and my father had just gotten arrested for something he didn't do. The lawyer we hired, he didn't care, didn't fight, just advised my father to take a plea deal to make it easier. I swore that day I'd become the kind of lawyer who actually fought for people." "Did you?" I asked, moving to stand beside him at the window. "For a while. Made it through law school, passed the bar. But then my grandfather got sick, and there was no one else to take over the businesses. So I put away my law degree and stepped into a role I never wanted." He turned to face me. "But I never stopped wanting to help people, to use the law to make things right. That's why when the Morettis started their campaign against us, I started building a case. Slowly, carefully, legally. I have evidence, Lucy. Financial records, witness statements, documentation of their illegal operations. But I need someone who knows how to use it, someone I can trust not to be bought or intimidated." "You want me to take them down," I said, understanding flooding through me. "I want you to help my family go legitimate," he corrected. "The Morettis, they're the last chain holding us to the old ways. Once they're gone, we can finally be clean, truly clean. But more than that," he paused, seeming to struggle with something. "I want you to stay, not just for the case, for you, for me. Because in the 6 hours since you got in my car, you've made me feel more seen, more understood, than anyone has in years." My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear my own thoughts over it. "Luca, you don't know me, not really, I'm neurotic and I talk too much and I work too hard and I can't cook and you're brilliant and honest and brave enough to get in a stranger's car and pour your heart out," he interrupted, stepping closer. "You're kind to 7-year-olds with legal questions and patient with loud Italian families who adopt you before dessert. You cry when you're grateful and you're not afraid to show it. You're everything I didn't know I was looking for. Lucy Lawson." "This is insane," I whispered. "We just met." "I know." His hand came up to cup my face, his thumb brushing away a tear I hadn't realized had fallen. But sometimes insane is exactly right. He was going to kiss me. I could see the intention in his dark eyes, feel the pull of gravity between us. And God help me, I wanted him to. Wanted to know if his lips were as soft as they looked. If kissing him would feel as earth-shattering as every other moment I'd spent in his presence tonight. But before he could close the distance, Logan's voice drifted up the stairs. "Uncle Luca, Nonna says it's time for midnight mass, and Lucy has to come because she's family now." The moment broke, but the electricity remained. Luca's hand dropped from my face, and he stepped back with visible effort. "Rain check?" he asked, his voice rough. "Rain check," I agreed, trying to catch my breath. We went to midnight mass at the small Catholic church 3 blocks away, the whole family filling an entire pew. I hadn't been to church since my parents' funeral, and being there surrounded by the Santoros, their warmth and faith and unshakable togetherness, I felt something in me start to heal. As we filed out into the snowy night, Loretta linked her arm through mine. "You'll come back tomorrow for Christmas Day," she said. Not a question. "We have too many leftovers and Logan already made you a present." "Logan made me a present?" "A legal brief arguing why you should stay forever," she said with a knowing smile. "He's very persuasive when he wants to be. Gets it from his uncle." I glanced at Luca, who was helping his father navigate the icy steps, and felt my carefully constructed walls crumbling further. This was dangerous. All of it. Getting attached to this family, to this man, to the possibility of belonging somewhere. But maybe dangerous wasn't always bad. Maybe sometimes it was exactly what you needed. Luca insisted on driving me home despite my protests that I could take a real Uber this time. We rode in comfortable silence for a while, the city quiet in the early Christmas morning hours, streets still covered in fresh snow that muffled sound and made everything feel dreamlike. "You're thinking very loudly," Luca observed as we crossed into Williamsburg. "I'm thinking this is crazy," I admitted. "All of it. That I spent Christmas Eve with your family. That I'm actually considering helping you build a case against a crime family. That I want to come back tomorrow even though every logical part of my brain is screaming that this is too fast, too intense, too everything." "And what's the illogical part saying?" I looked at him, really looked at him, in the glow of passing streetlights. Strong profile, capable hands on the wheel, that air of controlled power that should intimidate me but somehow didn't. That maybe I've been logical for too long. That maybe sometimes you have to take the wrong car to end up exactly where you're supposed to be. His hand found mine across the center console, threading our fingers together in a way that felt natural despite being brand new. "I meant what I said earlier. I want you to stay, Lucy. Not just for the case, though I do need your help with that. But because I haven't felt this settled, this right, with anyone in longer than I can remember. And I think you feel it too." "I do," I whispered, "and it terrifies me." "Good. Terror means you're paying attention." He pulled up outside my building, a 4th-floor walk-up that looked even more shabby next to his luxury sedan. "Can I walk you up?" I should have said no. Should have maintained some boundaries. Some distance. Instead, I nodded. My apartment was exactly what you'd expect for an overworked attorney who spent all her time at the office. Small, sparsely furnished, with stacks of case files covering every flat surface. I moved automatically to start tidying, but Luca caught my hand. "Don't," he said. "I don't care about the mess. I care that you're here, safe." His eyes scanned the apartment, and I saw them catch on the peeling paint, the radiator that hissed and clanged. the window that didn't quite close all the way. "This is where you live?" "It's cheap and close to the subway," I said defensively. "It's a fire trap." His voice had gone hard. "The window doesn't seal, which means anyone could jimmy it open. There's no doorman, no security. The lock on your front door is at least 20 years old. Lucy, this isn't safe. I've lived here for 3 years and been fine." "You've been lucky," he corrected, "but luck runs out." He turned to face me fully. "Move in with me." I actually laughed, the sound borderline hysterical. "We just met. You can't ask me to move in with you." "Why not? I have a penthouse in Tribeca with actual security, heating that works, and more than one room. You'd have your own space, your own office to work from, and you'd be safe." "Luca, I'm not asking you to sleep in my bed, Lucy, though God knows I want that too." The blunt admission made heat pool in my stomach. "I'm asking you to let me protect you while you help protect my family. The Morettis, when they figure out you're helping us build a case against them, they'll come after you. They'll threaten you, maybe try to hurt you. I can't let that happen." The concern in his voice was real, as was the fear underneath it. This wasn't manipulation or control. This was genuine worry from a man who understood exactly how dangerous his world could be. "Let me think about it," I said finally. "The case, the apartment, all of it. It's too much to decide at 3 a.m. on Christmas Day." He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay. But you'll come to my parents' house later today? Logan will be devastated if you don't, and my mother has already set a place for you." "I'll come," I promised, and was rewarded with a smile that made my knees weak. He moved toward the door, then paused. "Lucy, thank you for tonight, for being exactly who you are, without apology or pretense. It's rare and precious, and I'm grateful I got to witness it." Before I could respond, he leaned in and pressed a soft kiss to my forehead, his lips lingering for just a moment before he stepped back. "Lock this behind me. All 3 locks, even the chain." I did as he asked, listening to his footsteps fade down the stairs. Then I leaned against the door and tried to process everything that had happened in the past few hours. I'd gotten in the wrong car. Met a Mafia boss who looked at me like I hung the moon. Had Christmas Eve dinner with his overwhelming, wonderful family. Been offered a job taking down his enemies and a place to live, and something that felt dangerously close to a relationship, all before we'd even kissed properly. It was insane. Reckless. Everything I'd spent years avoiding. And I was absolutely, terrifyingly sure I was going to say yes to all of it. I woke Christmas morning to my phone ringing, Logan's name on the screen, which shouldn't have been possible since I'd never given him my number. Luca must have programmed it in. "Lucy, it's Christmas. Are you coming? Nona made struffoli, and Uncle Luca keeps checking his phone, and Mama says you're going to help me with my legal brief." His enthusiasm was infectious, and I found myself smiling despite having slept maybe 3 hours. "I'm coming, Logan. Give me an hour to get ready." "Okay, but hurry because I have 700 questions about prosecutorial discretion." I showered, changed into the nicest sweater I owned, and was just grabbing my coat when someone knocked. Through the peephole, I saw Luca holding 2 coffee cups and a bag that smelled like fresh pastries. "How did you get into the building?" I asked as I opened the door. "Your downstairs neighbor was leaving for church. I told her I was your boyfriend bringing you Christmas breakfast. He handed me a coffee, prepared exactly how I'd taken it at his parents' house despite me never telling him. Is that okay? The boyfriend thing?" My heart did something complicated in my chest. "Ask me again after I've had coffee." He laughed and followed me inside, looking somehow even more handsome in dark jeans and a charcoal sweater that probably cost more than my rent. "Fair enough. I brought cornetti from this bakery in Little Italy that's been open since my grandfather was a boy. Thought you might be hungry." We sat at my tiny kitchen table, knees bumping in the cramped space, eating pastries that were buttery and perfect. It should have felt awkward, having him here in my shabby apartment in the harsh light of day. Instead, it felt comfortable. Right. I want to help, I said finally. With the Moretti case. Not because you're offering me an apartment or because Logan asked nicely, though both of those things are factors. But because what you said last night, about using the law to make things right, that's why I became a lawyer too. And if I can help your family go legitimate, help take down people who are actually dangerous. I trailed off. That feels important. More important than drafting endless briefs for corporate clients who don't need me. You're sure? His dark eyes searched mine. Because once you're in this, Lucy, there's no going back. The Morettis will know you're helping us. It could get dangerous. I'm sure. And I was. Terrifyingly, completely sure. But I need to understand exactly what I'm walking into. The whole truth, Luca. No secrets. He set down his coffee and leaned back, his expression going serious. The Morettis have been running illegal operations in this city for 3 generations. Drugs, illegal gambling, extortion. My grandfather, he was part of that world once, but he got out before I was born. Started legitimate businesses, cleaned up the family money. But Dante Moretti, the current head of their family, he sees my success, my father's success, and he wants to drag us back down. Why? Because we're proof you can leave. Proof you can be successful without blood and violence. And that threatens everything he's built his identity on. Luca's jaw tightened. 3 months ago, they burned down one of my restaurants. Last month, they threatened my sister, said they'd hurt Logan if we didn't pay protection money. That's when I started gathering evidence. Financial records showing their money laundering. Witness statements from people they've extorted. Proof of their illegal activities that would stand up in court. Where's the evidence now? Safety deposit box at a bank in Queens. Only I have the key. He pulled something from his pocket, a small silver key that he set on the table between us. But I need someone who knows how to use it. Someone who can build a case that the DA can't ignore and the Morettis can't buy their way out of. I picked up the key, feeling its weight in my palm. This was real. This was my life changing in my hand. Okay, I said. Let's take them down. His smile was fierce and proud. That's my girl. The words sent warmth flooding through me, but I forced myself to stay focused. I'll need to see everything. Every document, every witness statement, every piece of evidence you have. And I'll need protection while I work on it. Not because I'm afraid, I added quickly, but because I'm not stupid. If they threatened Logan, they won't hesitate to threaten me. You'll move into my place, he said immediately. Today. We'll get your things and... Whoa. I held up a hand. I said I'd help with the case. I didn't agree to move in with you. Lucy, be reasonable. I am being reasonable. You're the one asking a woman you've known for less than 24 hours to upend her entire life. We stared at each other across the small table, and I watched him wrestle with his instinct to push versus his desire to respect my boundaries. Finally, he sighed. Compromise. You don't move in permanently, but you stay with me while you're working on the case, just until it's safe again. And you let me assign someone to watch your apartment. Make sure the Morettis don't try anything. It was more than reasonable. Deal. But I'm keeping my apartment. I'm not giving up my lease for a maybe. Fair. He extended his hand across the table. Partners? I shook it, ignoring the way electricity sparked where our skin touched. Partners. Good. Now, finish your coffee because Logan has been texting me every 5 minutes asking when you're getting there, and if we're late for Christmas breakfast, my mother will kill me. I laughed and grabbed my coat, following Luca out into the bright Christmas morning, the key to his evidence tucked safely in my pocket and my heart pounding with equal parts terror and exhilaration. I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. But for the first time in 6 years, I was excited to find out. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of legal documents and Santoro family dinners. I'd set up a temporary office in Luca's guest room. The safety deposit box contents spread across the massive desk he'd had delivered the day after Christmas. Every morning, I'd wake up in the insanely comfortable guest bed, find fresh coffee already brewed, and lose myself in the intricate web of financial crimes the Morettis had woven. And every evening, Luca would drag me away from my work, insisting we have dinner together. Sometimes just the two of us in his penthouse kitchen, him cooking while I rambled about discovery rules and prosecutorial standards. Other times at his parents' house, where Loretta fed me until I couldn't move, and Logan grilled me about constitutional law, while helping me organize evidence chronologically. "You're working her too hard," Loretta chided Luca one night, watching me yawn over tiramisu. "She's the one who won't stop," Luca countered. "I keep telling her to take breaks. Because the faster we build this case, the faster your family is safe," I pointed out. "Besides, I've found some really damaging stuff. The Morettis have been sloppy. They're so confident no one will challenge them that they didn't bother hiding their tracks well." "Tell me," Luca said, and I launched into an explanation of shell companies and money laundering schemes that had Logan's eyes glazing over, but made Luca lean forward with fierce attention. Later, as he drove me back to his place, he said, "You're brilliant. You know that, right? The way your mind works, connecting pieces that seemed unrelated, finding patterns no one else would see. It's extraordinary." The praise made me flush with pleasure. "I'm just doing my job." "No, you're saving my family. There's a difference." Back at the penthouse, I should have gone straight to bed. Instead, I found myself lingering in the living room, drawn to the floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city. Luca joined me, 2 glasses of wine in hand. "Can't sleep?" he asked, offering me one. "Too wired. My brain won't shut off." I accepted the wine, our fingers brushing in a way that made my breath catch. It had been happening more often lately, these small touches that felt charged with meaning. I think I have enough to approach the DA next week. The financial evidence alone is damning, but combined with the witness statements. "Lucy." His hand covered mine on the glass. "You've done more in 2 weeks than I managed in 3 months. You're allowed to celebrate that." "I'll celebrate when Dante Moretti is behind bars and your family is safe." "Always taking care of everyone else," he observed softly. "Who takes care of you, Lucy?" The question hit harder than it should have. "I take care of myself. I always have." "That's not the same thing." He set his wine down and turned to face me fully. "When's the last time someone asked what you needed? What you wanted?" I couldn't remember. It had been so long since anyone cared about my wants beyond billable hours and case outcomes. "I don't know." "Then let me ask, what do you want, Lucy Lawson?" The honest answer terrified me. I wanted to belong somewhere. I wanted to stop being alone. I wanted to kiss him and find out if the connection between us was as real as it felt, or just proximity and adrenaline. I wanted to be brave enough to reach for something good instead of always bracing for the inevitable loss. I started, then lost my nerve. "I want to finish the Moretti case and keep your family safe." "That's what you're doing, not what you want." He stepped closer, his dark eyes intense in the dim lighting. "Try again. What do you want? Why do you care?" The question came out more defensive than I intended, because somewhere between you getting in my car and right now, you became important to me. More important than anyone has been in longer than I care to admit. His hand came up to cut my face, thumb brushing my cheekbone. "So I'll ask one more time. What do you want?" You, I breathed, the truth escaping before I could stop it. I want you to kiss me and mean it. I want to stop being afraid of getting attached. I want to believe this is real and not just circumstances throwing us together. It's real, he said, his voice rough with emotion. So fucking real it terrifies me. I've never felt like this, Lucy. Never wanted to protect someone and possess them and know every single thing about them all at once. You've become essential, and I don't know what to do with that except this. Then he was kissing me, his lips claiming mine with a hunger that stole my breath. I melted into him, my hands fisting in his shirt to pull him closer, and it was everything I'd imagined and more. He tasted like wine and something darker, something uniquely him that made me dizzy with want. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I'm keeping you, he murmured. I know it's too soon and too intense and probably insane, but I don't care. You're mine now, Lucy. If you'll have me. Yes, I whispered, throwing caution entirely to the wind. Yes, I'll have you. His smile was devastating. Good, because I wasn't actually planning to give you a choice. I laughed, swatting his chest. Very romantic. I'll work on my delivery. He pulled me close, tucking me against his side as we looked out at the glittering city. But the sentiment stands. You're mine. And I protect what's mine. The possessiveness should have triggered every alarm bell, every warning sign from my past. But this was different. Luca's claim wasn't about control or manipulation. It was about belonging, about finding someone who saw you completely and wanted you anyway. There's something else you should know, I said after a long, comfortable silence. I found evidence that the Morettis have someone inside the DA's office. A mole who's been feeding them information about ongoing investigations. Luca went very still. Are you certain? 90%. The timing of their movements, how they always seem to know when law enforcement is getting close, it all points to inside information. I'm working on identifying who, but it means we need to be careful about who we approach with the evidence. Who can we trust? There's an FBI agent I went to law school with, Rebecca Martinez. She's clean. I'd stake my life on it. If we can get the evidence to her, she can bring in a task force from outside the local jurisdiction. People the Morettis don't have in their pocket. He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. Set up the meeting. But Lucy, I meant what I said about protecting you. This information, if the Morettis find out you know about their mole. They'll come after me. I know. I turned in his arms to face him. But I'm not running. Not from this and not from you. That's my brave girl, he murmured, and kissed me again, softer this time, but no less intense. We stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other, watching the city lights and pretending we had all the time in the world, pretending that danger wasn't circling closer with every piece of evidence I uncovered. The meeting with Rebecca was set for 3 days later at a coffee shop in Midtown. I brought copies of everything, loaded onto an encrypted drive, while Luca waited in the car with his security team. She was exactly as I remembered, sharp-eyed, no nonsense, with an expression that said she'd seen every trick in the book. Lucy Lawson, she said, as I slid into the booth across from her. When you called about evidence in an organized crime case, I have to admit I was surprised. Corporate law not exciting enough for you anymore? Let's just say I stumbled into something bigger. I pushed the drive across the table. The Moretti family. 3 generations of illegal operations, all documented here. Financial records, witness statements, enough to put Dante Moretti away for the rest of his life. She didn't touch the drive immediately. And your interest in this case would be? Personal. They threatened someone I care about. I met her eyes steadily. Someone who wants out of that world but can't get clean while the Morettis keep trying to drag him back in. Understanding dawned. Luca Santoro, I heard rumors he'd found someone. Didn't realize it was you. Does that matter? Depends. Are you being coerced? Threatened? Because if you're building a case under duress... I'm not, I interrupted firmly. I'm doing this because it's right. Because the Morettis are dangerous and need to be stopped. And because the man I care about deserves a chance at a legitimate life without constant threats against his family. Rebecca studied me for a long moment, then picked up the drive. I'll need to verify everything, build our own case. It could take months. I know, but there's something else. I leaned forward, lowering my voice. The Morettis have someone in the local DA's office, a mole. I haven't identified who yet, but you need to know that any investigation run through normal channels will be compromised. Her expression went hard. You're sure? As sure as I can be without proof, but the patterns are there. She nodded slowly. Okay, I'll bring in a clean task force, people from outside New York. We'll move quietly, carefully. But Lucy? Once we move on this, there's no going back. The Morettis will know someone fed us this information, and they'll come looking for who. Let them look, I said with more confidence than I felt. I'll be ready. After leaving Rebecca, I found Luca leaning against his car, arms crossed, looking like every fantasy I'd never let myself have. Dark jeans, leather jacket, that intensity that made my heart race. How'd it go? He asked as I approached. She's in. She'll start building the case, bring in federal agents who aren't compromised. I smiled, feeling triumphant. We're really doing this, Luca. We're going to take them down. He pulled me close, kissing me right there on the street like he didn't care who saw. You're incredible, you know that? You might have mentioned it once or twice, I teased. Well, I'm going to keep mentioning it. His phone buzzed and he glanced at it, his expression darkening. Merda. What's wrong? My father. The Morettis just made another move. They bought the property next to my parents' house. They're surrounding us, getting closer. Fear spiked through me. Logan is fine. Sophia's taking him to stay with her in-laws in Connecticut until this is over. But Lucy, they're escalating. They know something's coming. They just don't know what. Then we move faster. How long until New Year's Eve? He looked confused by the question. 4 days. Why? Because I have an idea. I grinned, feeling reckless and brave and absolutely certain. A very crazy, possibly brilliant idea. New Year's Eve dawned clear and cold, and I woke wrapped in Luca's arms in his bed. We'd crossed that final line 3 nights ago, and I'd moved from the guest room into his space with a naturalness that should have scared me, but didn't. This was where I belonged, with him. You're thinking loudly again, he murmured against my hair, his voice rough with sleep. I'm thinking your family is going to lose their minds when you propose tonight. Our family, he corrected, his arms tightening around me. And they're going to lose their minds with joy. Mama's been planning our wedding since Christmas Day. I laughed, turning in his arms to face him. We've known each other less than a month, and I've never been more certain of anything in my life. His hand came up to cup my face. You're it for me, Lucy. The one, the only, the forever. Tears pricked my eyes. That's a lot of pressure for someone who still can't cook. Lucky for you I can, and Mama will teach you. She's already planning the lessons. He kissed me softly. But first we're going to take down the Morettis, keep my family safe, and start our life together properly. In that order. Rebecca had come through. The FBI task force had moved with lightning speed, building on the foundation I'd laid. Warrants had been issued, agents were positioned, and tonight, during the chaos of New Year's celebrations, they'd move on the Morettis simultaneously, hitting all their operations at once before the mole could warn them. But Luca's idea had been even better. Tonight, surrounded by family and friends at his parents' house, he'd announce our engagement. And in doing so, he'd bind me to the Santoro family so completely that touching me would be tantamount to declaring war on everyone Luca had ever allied with. It was protection and proclamation in one. The Santoro house was already packed when we arrived that evening. Not just immediate family, but extended cousins, business associates, friends from the neighborhood. Loretta had outdone herself, the dining room table groaning under the weight of food, champagne flowing freely. Logan attached himself to me immediately, pulling me aside to show me his legal brief on why Lucy should marry Uncle Luca, which was actually a surprisingly well-reasoned argument citing precedents from romantic comedies and the general principle that, when you love someone, you should keep them. "I'm convinced," I told him seriously. "Your argument is airtight." "I know," he said, with the confidence of a future Supreme Court justice. "So you'll say yes?" "You'll have to wait and see." But I knew I would. Of course I would. Luca had become my person, my home, my future, all in less than a month, which was insane and perfect and exactly right. As midnight approached, Luca stood and tapped his glass. The room fell silent, everyone turning to face him. He was devastatingly handsome in a dark suit, his eyes finding mine across the crowded room and holding. "Family, friends," he began, his voice carrying easily. "Thank you for being here tonight to celebrate with us. This past month has brought unexpected blessings into my life." His gaze never left mine. "Lucy Lawson walked into my life by accident, getting in my car on Christmas Eve because she thought I was her Uber driver." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "But there are no accidents, no coincidences, just fate putting the right person in the right place at exactly the right time. Lucy, would you come here?" My heart hammering, I made my way through the crowd to stand beside him. He took my hand, his thumb stroking across my knuckles. "In the few short weeks I've known you," he said, speaking to me now, "you've become essential. You've shown me what it means to be truly seen, truly known, truly loved without condition or calculation. You've made my family your own, won over my nephew with legal arguments about privacy rights, and somehow made my mother love you almost as much as I do." "Almost," Loretta called out, making everyone laugh again. "So, Lucy Lawson," Luca dropped to one knee, pulling a ring box from his pocket. "Will you marry me? Will you let me spend the rest of my life protecting you, cherishing you, and listening to you talk endlessly about legal precedents I don't understand?" The ring was perfect. Simple, elegant, exactly what I would have chosen if he'd asked. "Yes," I said, my voice breaking with emotion. "Yes, of course, yes." The room erupted in cheers as he slid the ring onto my finger and stood to kiss me, not caring that we had an audience. Logan was jumping up and down, yelling, "I told you my brief would work." Loretta was crying. Antonio was opening more champagne, and my phone buzzed in my clutch. A text from Rebecca. "All targets in custody. Dante Moretti arrested an hour ago. Evidence secured. It's over." I showed Luca, and his relief was palpable. "It's really over," he breathed. "My family's safe. We can finally start clean." "We can start everything," I agreed. The new year arrived in a chaos of champagne and kissing, and Santoro family members taking turns hugging me and welcoming me officially to the family. Logan made me promise to help him with his mock trial team. Sophia invited me to a sister's dinner. Antonio pulled me aside to tell me I was the best thing that had ever happened to his son. And Loretta, she just held my face in her hands and said, "Welcome home, daughter." The next morning, I woke to news alerts about the massive FBI operation that had brought down the Moretti crime family. Dante Moretti and 17 associates arrested, millions in assets seized. The biggest organized crime bust in New York in a decade. "You did this," Luca said, reading over my shoulder. "You saved my family." We did it, I corrected. Together. He pulled me close, pressing a kiss to my temple. Together. I like the sound of that. Good, because you're stuck with me now. Logan's legal brief was very clear on the binding nature of engagement agreements. His laugh rumbled through his chest. Well, if Logan's legal brief says so. 6 months later, I walked down the aisle of the same Catholic church where I'd attended midnight mass on Christmas Eve. Loretta cried through the entire ceremony. Logan was the ring bearer and took his duties with appropriate solemnity. And when the priest pronounced us husband and wife, the entire Santoro family cheered so loudly, the priest had to ask them twice to quiet down. At the reception, Logan presented me with another legal brief, this one arguing why I should help him apply to law school in approximately 11 years. You're planning ahead, I noted. Uncle Luca says good lawyers always have a strategy, he replied seriously. I looked at my husband across the reception hall, deep in conversation with his father, but watching me with that intensity that still made my heart race. He caught my eye and smiled, mouthing, I love you. You know what, Logan, I said, pulling him into a hug. I think Uncle Luca is absolutely right, and I'd be honored to help you with your law school applications. Does this mean I can call you Aunt Lucy now? You'd better. That night, as Luca and I finally escaped to the hotel suite for our wedding night, he pulled me close and said, No regrets? About accidentally getting in your car? Not a single one. About marrying a man you've known less than a year? Luca Santoro, I said, reaching up to cup his face. You were right that first night. There are no accidents, no coincidences. Just fate putting the right person in exactly the right place at exactly the right time. I chose the wrong car, and it brought me everything I didn't know I needed. We chose each other, he corrected, kissing me softly. And I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. Then you'd better get started, I teased. He did, and it was perfect.